Hey y'all, it is Ussens again, bringing you some more Reblogatog right here on the
sixth time
Chatter of the Squirrels YouTube network. Woo! We got there. All right, so that's a thing. Anyway, thanks for joining us again for our half dozen episode. And we're probably just going to roll right into it, right?
I think so.
If you caught our last one, which we just did a couple days ago in real time, we're trying to get caught up and get back on a regular schedule. So, anyway, we are relation, as we said before, and I've been having those grandparent duties that let me babysit, so we're sort of breaking the 6-foot thing, but, you know, family.
Family, y'all.
Anyway, that's how it's working for us here. So anyway, we're going to start off with, looks like we're on April 9th, is where we're going back to on this one. And this guy says, I was a huge fan of the cycle or discard wording from Amonkhet. Can you tell me what happened to it in Ikoria? And I found this funny because Mayro says it confused players. And the whole reason they did it that way was so that new players wouldn't be confused.
Right.
So,
I liked it.
Live and learn.
Yeah.
Live and learn. I thought it was awkward. But, you know, whatever. I know that cycling means discard.
Right.
And they were trying to do something with that. I get it, but I found it odd, and so I'm glad that they went back personally. That's just moi, you know. Hi, Mark. I was wondering what color are copy effects in the color pie?
Bleh.
Not all.
Mostly.
Copying creatures is primary in blue. Green can copy its own creatures.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it very often.
No.
But he always brings this up, and I'm just like, how about we do that a little bit more? Because we don't really, like, fetch another one out or something, but you just don't see it copying its own creatures. I'd like to see that part of the color pie expanded. I'm speaking for the green mages. White can copy tokens.
Yeah.
Red can temporarily copy creatures.
Yep.
Blue and
Till
red
end of turn.
can copy instants and sorceries.
Lots of that.
Blue can copy artifacts. Red can copy them temporarily.
Yes.
Blue can copy enchantments primary. White is secondary, but we don't copy enchantments a lot.
No, they don't.
Is there a white copy enchantment out there? Okay, kind of like the green copy a creature.
Yeah.
They may have the part of the pie, but do we really see that? And then blue can copy planeswalkers.
Right. We've seen that with Spark Doubles about it so far, right?
Just about.
First time they let us really
Other
do
than
that.
Jace making, you know,
Jace
copies of himself.
Yeah.
That might be the only place, yeah. So, anyway, I thought that was interesting. He lays out what copies, what, how, and all that stuff. I still think two of those need to be explored a little further. For us Selesnya folks. Because I also speak for the Selesnya people.
I would not disagree, especially the white copying enchantments, because
I think there's two things that copy enchantments, and they're both blue.
there's copy enchantment.
Yeah, and then there's a newer one that's also a copy enchantment. I believe it's in blue. I can't think of the name of it, but it also. So anyway, wasn't prepared for that, but I believe it exists. So moving right along, we didn't announce at the beginning, but if you don't know what Reblogatog is, look it up. Mark Rosewater's got a Blogatog on Tumblr. He calls it Blogatog, and we just go over the most interesting stuff every week. So there you go. Will we see more cards with the text excess damage? He says that depends if players enjoy or understand it.
I certainly hope the rest of them do.
That's as close as we're going to get to trample on a card. There's a couple of them out there. I'm a fan. We talked about Super Duper Death Ray last week on the last episode. And we talked a little bit about the next card. Another question says, I just saw Ram Through, and it feels about as green as Hornet Queen. This guy doesn't understand color pie, or this person. I know you guys have been experimenting with giving green still more of the color pie, and I'm humbly asking you to please rein it back in. So Mark sets him straight, says bite, which is one-sided fight.
One-sided fight, yeah.
Isn't just allowable in green, it's primary.
Yeah.
And has been for a while.
Quite a while.
Adding trample to it, a primary green ability nonetheless, shouldn't make the spell feel out of pie for green.
I agree.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Hornet Queen is. I get that. Hornet Queen is out of pie.
Yeah.
With green not being able to really have flyers, other than a dragon here or there when they do a dragon set. So anyway, if you're not familiar with Ram Through, it's a green and 1. I think we might have talked about it in the last episode.
We talked about it last week.
It's an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. If the creature you control has trample, excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. Kind of like making that creature just trample right on through to the player, and I thought it was very flavorful. I really enjoyed it. It's an ability, as I told some people on Discord the other day, that I've been wanting for at least a decade, if not 2.
Right.
I really want to be playing a multiplayer game, and I'd really like for my creature with trample to get the ability that if it kills the first opponent, then I get to trample that damage through to a second opponent.
Now then we're on to building Voltron, all right?
Well, that makes it a little difficult. You have to declare a first and second opponent unless we go back to the old attack left, defend right, or attack right, defend left kind of rule. But we always wanted it back in the day. So I'm happy to see we're getting something very similar to it, and I, for one, am all hyped. So it's definitely in color pie. Don't change a thing.
It's good. It is all good.
Okay, so you want to read one?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, let's make sure we hit this black mythos here.
Right. That's why these were highlighted to put together per your suggestion.
You brought this up because it's a jarble to say. But why was the black mythos phrased the way it was? Why not destroy target creature? If green and white was paid, destroy non-land permanent instead. And he says, I assume it was done that way for targeting purposes, which is exactly...
If you're not familiar, it's Mythos of Nethroi.
Yes.
It's a black and 2. It is an instant. And it says... I'm going to have to really read it. Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature. Or if green and white was spent to cast this spell. I read that thing so many times it first came out, and I finally thought, I'll just wait till somebody smarter than me figures out what that means. But basically, you get to destroy a creature with it for a black and any 2 mana.
Yep.
It'll destroy a creature.
Yep.
If those other 2 mana happen to be green and white, then you can get any non-land permanent with it.
Exactly. Now, do you know why it's worded this way?
Something to do with targeting, but no, I couldn't grok that.
I'll tell you, I actually get this fairly easily. This is the old Red Elemental Blast versus Pyroblast issue, is what this is.
Neither one of those are that complicated.
But there's a difference, a very subtle difference.
There is a subtle difference.
This is the same subtle difference because you can target something you can't destroy, which is... You can target a non-land permanent that's not a creature with it, even if you didn't spend the green and white to destroy it, which in corner cases makes that important.
I guess if you really want to cast a spell or get it out of your hand, I can see that would be the case.
Right, or if it's something that just needs to be targeted to be destroyed.
I still think there had to be a cleaner way to do it. Even if they had to make 2 sentences.
It is. They didn't put it all in one nice. There's not even a comma in there. I guess it doesn't
destroy target creature. Period. If green and white was spent to cast a spell, destroy target non-land permanent instead. I don't know. I guess they're wanting it to work for certain things. Anyway, be that as it may, that's how it works. We've explained it to you, Lucy. I think that's 2 references I did to that in 2 weeks. So.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm old, so I know things. But Nick at Night has existed for decades now, so
yeah,
y'all should know Lucy. Lucille Ball.
Probably close to 30 years, because I remember Nick at Night as a kid.
She's one of the funniest redheads ever. She's probably funnier than my wife. She's not as pretty as my wife, who's also a redhead, but, you know.
I'd like to see Mom work at a chocolate factory. You'll find out who's funny.
All right, so why is Lurrus the only companion that breaks its own restrictions? That is, it cannot be played both as a companion and in the main deck at the same time.
I noticed this.
Lurrus is a rebel. In each case, we made the companion card what the deck needed, and the 2 or less deck needed something a tiny bit bigger. So if you're not familiar with Lurrus, it's 2 hybrid black or white plus 1, so it costs 3.
Right.
Companion, it's a legendary creature, Cat Nightmare, with Companion.
Right.
Each permanent card in your starting deck has converted mana cost 2 or less. And it's not in your starting deck, it's in the sideboard, so it gets to play there. And then it has lifelink, and during each of your turns you may cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. So anyway, yes, I noticed this when it first came out. And I thought, that's pretty funny.
It is, because the other ones you could play another copy of in the main deck, as well as having the companion copy. Yeah. This one you can't have a copy in the main deck.
Yeah, you can play 3 other copies of the others.
Right.
Well, other than the one that's banned in Brawl and Commander.
Right.
But still. So yeah, kind of an interesting thing.
I understand what he's saying. They wanted something a little more top end, I guess, to spend some mana on in that deck.
Yeah, that's it. I like that he's a rebel. I thought that was the best answer. That. All right, why did you not use the color's iconic creature types very much in Ikoria? Aren't those monsters? Since the monsters of the set are focused on 5 creature types, 1 centered in each color. Which, again, I believe we went over this last week.
Right, and I get this, but I think really what this guy was trying to ask more is why weren't those 5 creature types that were chosen the iconic creature types for the colors? Because those are all dragons or big monsters.
Angels aren't normally considered monsters.
Okay, I guess
demons would have fit. Most of them would have fit, but angels wouldn't have fit.
I guess. Because Beast, you have Beast in green, or Hydra.
You have Hydra is the iconic.
Yeah.
Beast is what they ended up using. You have Demon for black, and they ended up using Nightmare.
Right.
You have red is Dragon, and they end up using
Dinosaur.
Dinosaur is centered in red.
Yeah.
This was brand new information to me. I thought it was centered in green, but okay. At least for this set, it's centered in red, apparently. White, you would have had Angel, and they used Cat. And then, are we missing one?
Blue.
Blue is Sphinx, and so they went with Elemental. I think maybe they also stretched back to the source material with the Godzilla and the monster
the kaiju
thing. And the kaiju and all that.
That makes sense.
I think that's where they maybe come from. I'm not super familiar with that source material, but taking that monster thing into effect, I think that's where they went.
That's all fair. It does just feel a little weird that on the monster plane we don't have dragons. We have dinosaurs, which are really closest, but we don't have dragons. That's the classic monster.
Monster angels! Arr! Let's go get them.
I think that'd be pretty cool, actually.
Those would have probably made male angels.
Oh,
we could have got them for the second time, so... all right, moving along. Is the shift to non-artifact colorless creatures a bend for Ikoria to help facilitate multicolor better? Also, since artifact creatures make less sense on this plane. Or is this a change we can expect a little bit more of moving forward? He says it depends on the world. It made sense in Ikoria.
That's fair.
So, I like the colorless stuff. I was super happy with it. I'd like to see a little bit of that. Not in every set, but a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
I think, and I think it's another thing pointing us towards Zendikar having some colorless stuff on it.
Oh, I definitely believe
And probably even some stuff that costs colorless. Even though the Eldrazi are gone, they left behind a lot of wasteland. So I think that has to be a part of it. I know it's growing back, but we're not gonna be revisiting it hundreds or thousands of years in the future. There's no way it can have recovered, so we've got to reference that somehow. So I think that's just a little bit of a plant. They're planting that. Survivor's Bond looks very similar to cards we see in black quite often. Any reason it ended up in green this time? He says we've just done a lot in black, and it's something green can do. So Survivor's Bond, if you're not familiar...
It's a very green card.
It's a green and 1. It's a sorcery. And it's in Ikoria. And choose one or both. Return target human creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Or return target non-human creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, it does seem very black where you get to, raise dead something. Right. And once in a while, back in Ixalan, you could get like a pirate and a merfolk. Yeah, it was a really good one in there.
Yeah, one with each of the tribes.
One with all 4 of the tribes were represented. But green has regrowth of anything at once.
Right. This is only creatures.
Any card. If they're going to restrict green, it's a permanent, and creatures are permanents.
Right. I mean, original regrowth is a green and 1 to get any card out of your graveyard.
Any card. A lot of stuff nowadays costs more than that, or it restricts it to like a permanent.
Right.
Let you only get a creature or enchantment.
I mean, this is a pretty good rate because it's a green and 1 for the possibility of getting 2 creatures.
Possibility of 2. But it's very green.
Yeah.
All right, we've wrapped up April 10th. Moving on to April 11th, looks like. So, do Ikoria theme boosters have exclusive cards? If you remember in the last set, which was what? Throne of Eldraine? Theros, yeah. They start too many with T's.
Theros Beyond Death. Yeah.
Theros Beyond, yeah, we played a little bit of that before we had to shut down. Right. So, yeah, okay, I got you. Theros Beyond Death. They did make one, was it 1 or 3 unique cards for the theme decks? One.
There was 3. I want to say 3. I can remember 1. There was one big one in each, I
think there was 3 available
or something.
But this set doesn't have those.
Thankfully, I think it was a cool thing to try, but I'm glad they didn't keep up with that.
He does say that the theme boosters do have some of the showcase mutate cards, also found in draft boosters. So that's cool. Kind of interesting.
That is cool.
Hi, Mark. Well, hey, but my name's not Mark. I wanted to provide some feedback about spoiler season for Ikoria. Having the commander cards revealed mid-spoiler season was confusing for me and made it difficult to mentally parse which cards I needed to care about for the pre-release, etc. Thank you for always being here for us to voice our thoughts. And this is one of those where he goes, what do others think about how the commander cards were previewed? I'm with this guy.
Yeah, Mark, if you, for some reason, are ever listening to us, it was a bad idea. Sorry, guys.
I know it wasn't his idea.
It's not your idea.
I mean, it could have been.
Try new things. I'm down with that, but this one didn't work out. Yeah, I still, to this day, especially since we haven't had a release, so I don't have cards in my hand physically, I still can't keep straight in my head what's what.
Yeah. I like the idea of tying the commander into the theme of a set release.
Right.
I like that.
And making it plane specific, that's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool, but it looks like we could have done that a month or 6 weeks after.
Or just, even if, you even could have just all the commander cards first, then all the regular cards, not in the middle.
I don't even want that. I don't even want that. Because they pretty much made that first weekend but there was already other stuff out there.
Right.
I don't even want that. I want there to be a clear definition between this set is over, Commander's coming out a month from now, we'll start those in 3 weeks. And then they give us those. I will probably have issues with this till the end of time for me. I don't know what came from what.
Yeah.
And not getting to play with it tomorrow is going to make it even worse, right?
Oh, yeah. For sure. I'm already I just don't...
I look at cards. I don't know.
Trying to theory craft decks for the future when I get cards in my hand, and I'm like, wait, is that gonna be in one of the commander decks, or I'm gonna have to get that out of a box or buy a single, or I don't know what's
right. So I think this guy's spot on.
Yeah.
I surely think that more people were confused than not out of this. I don't know, but that's my feelings on it. The mutate triggers built to circumvent card advantage issues are linear. You are heavily encouraged to put mutate cards together.
Yes.
Decks with any mutate may need to be devoted to the mechanic for it to compete in various formats. So the mechanic is erroneously described as parasitic. Mark says, cards having synergy with themselves does not make them parasitic. Right. The inability for them to work with others not of their kind is what makes something parasitic.
Right. Just because mutate cards work really good with other mutate cards, that's not parasitic.
No.
If they didn't work with anything except other mutate cards, that would be parasitic.
Yeah, if you needed 2 mutate cards in order to make them work, that'd be parasitic.
Right. And in original design, at one point, I think they talked about that's how it was going to work. And it didn't work out well in play design, so,
All right, so a related question from a little later. I'm trying to get related stuff together when I can. Hi, Mark. Could you please clarify what you mean by linear and A-B mechanics?
Right.
Hope you and the rest of the team are doing well. So, here's the explanation. Linear is a term meaning a card mechanically encourages a specific subset of other cards.
Right.
Affinity is a good example of a very linear mechanic. AB means that a mechanic cares about a specific quality found on cards other than itself. Madness is a good example of an AB mechanic, as Madness requires you also having discard cards to enable the Madness cards. AB is a subset of linear. So there's our description of the difference between linear and a subset thereof,
right.
AB. And so that kind of follows along with what this guy is thinking, that they're linear. Not really.
No. Mutate's very open.
You don't need another mutate card to play mutate. It's not parasitic.
Now, do
you get synergy?
Yeah.
The second mutate cards, you get synergy.
You are heavily encouraged to... He's correct that you are heavily encouraged to put mutate cards together. You are.
Sure you are.
But that...
Do you have to? No.
You don't have to.
You can take one mutate card you really like, throw it in your commander deck, throw it in your modern deck, wherever it works, to do something that you need it to do. And just play it.
I just want to play some of these commanders that have mutate that I can mutate into the battlefield. That seems cool.
All right, so moving right along. As someone who really liked generic partners, are there any chances we could see it again, or is it only going to be partner with from now on? He says there's a limit of how many open-ended partners we can do before the whole system breaks.
Yeah.
On a related note, I know there are tons of issues with open-ended partners, but in the storm scale of Commander, as in storm scale, but for Commander precons instead of standard legal sets, where would you put the return of open-ended partner mechanic? Because I'd really like to see some new ones, even if I understand the issues associated with them. He says, I'm not saying never, I'm just saying it's a resource we have to use judiciously. So, I, for one, am happy on this one.
Yeah.
Because I felt partner had the chance to get really, really bad really, really quick, and the partners with seems like it fixes that.
Right. I still think they could go a little bit broader than just letting it partner with one other creature. Maybe in the future, but maybe not completely open-ended. Something like a white-blue legendary creature that partners with red legendary creature or something. You still limit it.
Well, that's what partners with does. Oh, you mean it has to partner with a
red,
any red.
Right, not one specific card, but you still give it a subset of what it can partner with. It can't partner with anything, but it can partner with more than one specific card.
I'm just wondering if they'll open it up to where partnered with, I guess, is limited to just two. One partners with another.
Right.
But what if you had a partners with that could partner with two other cards?
Possibly.
I don't know if that means you would have three commanders or if you could just choose two of those three. And would give you a few more options.
Right.
I don't know, you're just getting really open-ended when you start having a blue-white that can partner with any red.
Right, but I mean...
With any card with partner, you know.
I understand, but I mean, it is still a limiting factor. It's not just partner with anything, you know.
All right.
Here's something specifically to let you make a cool Jeskai deck, specifically, kind of thing.
Yeah, because there's not anything cool that Jeskai can do.
Just...
Hi, Mark. Kudos for the Tricycle Lands. Is having a specific Ikoria names a serious issue to not include them in future set that has the wedges but is not in Ikoria? And why did you guys decide it was not a good idea to give them generic names instead? Thanks. This is like being honest, but a little sad. The next wedge set with cycling that isn't Ikoria is probably decades, if not more, away. So, don't get your hopes up for it anytime soon.
Right.
I mean, I waited, let's see, -1 counters. Yeah, it took a long time. Like I said, I think he says once or twice a decade for -1 counters. This is even farther away. Yeah. A wedge set with cycling.
That isn't Ikoria.
But that isn't Ikoria.
Right.
So if Ikoria is well liked and we can return there in, say, 5 years, maybe we get the other 5.
Yeah.
Oh! So we got an out.
Right.
How many members of Magic R&D are there today? He says it depends on how you want to count Magic R&D. Anywhere from 30 to well over 100. Huh. So there's a lot of Magic R&D.
Right.
I mean, there's probably more R&D than anything else, right?
I would imagine.
Maybe marketing has a pretty big group or something. Organized play, marketing. Yeah. But yeah, people making Magic, there's a lot of them. When designing Mutate, was there ever a concern regarding the typeless permanent issue with the Theros gods? What did that discussion look like? We don't stress about corner case interactions. Trust me, there are a lot worse things than letting a no-card type permanent somehow get onto the battlefield. In a related note, I cast a Mutate creature to mutate a Theros god, putting the mutated creature on top. My devotion goes down and the god's ability says it's not a creature. But it's not an enchantment either. What is it? It's no card type.
Right.
And to wrap this up, how would Mutate work with a Planeswalker that has temporarily become a creature? Sarkhan the Masterless, for example. Yes, you can mutate anything that is at that moment a creature, as long as it isn't a human.
Right.
So it does create some weird corner cases. I'm not going to try to tell you that I understand all of it. We did a little research before we started.
We deep dived on this a touch.
It looks like, I mean, you can mutate onto a token. It's still a token creature, but with all the abilities.
So it looks like if you use Sarkhan to turn a Planeswalker into a dragon, you can mutate on top of that dragon, and then when Sarkhan's ability ends, that Planeswalker is now a creature because you mutated on top of it. Is what we saw. Where you place the
it's a mutation. It's not a creature anymore. It's part of the creature.
Right. It is part of the creature. Well, but it is that creature because you put that creature on top.
Well, it's the creature that's on top.
Right.
It just has the abilities.
It would still have its loyalty abilities.
It still has the loyalty abilities.
But it can no longer be attacked because it's not a
not a Planeswalker. You can't attack it.
And it's not going to die from having 0 loyalty counters anymore.
Use all those loyalties.
Because it's a creature. But it would still function. So you could still plus it up. You could still minus it. That's all just fine and dandy.
Yeah, and you can mutate one of the Theros gods. If it's one of the ones from Amonkhet, Hour of Devastation, the ones that go back like second from the top, you put the entire stack.
Yep. The War of the Spark ones, yeah. In the order that you want to.
Oh, War of the Spark, sorry.
Yeah. You can order them all starting third from the top. Because all cards go to the same place. Be it your hand, your library, exile, graveyard. When something happens.
Again, we're not going to purport to know the whole deal, but you're going to get some wacky shenanigans, and at the end of the day, that's what I want out of my Magic.
They're doing good at giving us that.
I want some wacky shenanigans.
Mutate seems like the funnest stuff.
Success.
Mutate's the funnest thing they've done in a long time.
Yes.
I have to say.
Let's say the world went nuts, and Wizards said you had to pick an unpopular plane for Magic's next set. Which plane would you choose? I found the answer super interesting here. Mark says, I have an awesome idea for Lorwyn Shadowmoor. He says he has an awesome idea for Lorwyn Shadowmoor. And we've seen that, given time, Mark usually gets where he's trying to go.
Usually.
I mean, he got more unsets printed. He finally got a squirrel and black border. I mean, he usually gets there. I'm tended to think that there's a Lorwyn Shadowmoor return out there.
Maybe.
Hanging in that 5-year to 7-year plan.
I think there's one hanging. It feels weird because it feels like, even though I wasn't playing for Lorwyn, from what I know about Lorwyn, it feels like Eldraine was kind of a fixed Lorwyn. Because Lorwyn had the problem of no humans, but it was kind of Celtic fairy tale-ish in its design. Not overly fairy tales like they did with Eldraine.
Right, it was the Celtic theme. But, a lot of people write in to Blogatog wanting more non-human representation. And there's tons of it already.
Right.
And we won't get started on identifying as or whatever. But they want more non-human worlds. So this could be a place where they could do it. They could get back there and give us a world with no humans on it.
That would be interesting.
We can mutate all those.
Ooh, do it while Aquarius is still at standard.
I don't think it's that close. I don't think it's that close. But I think he's working on it. I think there's something in the works for Kamigawa, or a Kamigawa-like plane. I think they're all in that 5 to 7 year plan.
I'd like to see Kamigawa again, but we'll see.
How much consideration is given as to when you start a cycle you won't be finished with for a long time? Like the tricycle lands. I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. Finishing cycles is something we do when we can, but we don't let the worry of it keep us from making cool new cycles.
There you go.
And we're happy for that.
Yeah.
They just finished the ultimatum cycle, if you will, and that's been hanging out there for a decade.
There's a lot of open cycles.
Also, the human mind tends to find cycles where they didn't intend it. Happens all the time. Somebody will go, "How come you didn't finish the cycle? Here's 4 examples." And Mark will go, "What?
We didn't
know that."
Right.
They didn't intend it to be a cycle. That's why it wasn't a finished cycle.
I believe it was in Theros, actually. I asked, I was like, where it felt like there was a cycle of cards, and I believe the red one was missing, and I asked something about it, and we had a Blogatog that it was not intended to be a cycle. Someone else would notice it too.
Yeah. Why is white tertiary in counterspells? It seems to me that white should be secondary, considering that white is the color that cares most about rules and order, etc. Counterspells seem very natural in white. Because we limit how many counterspells we have in the game, as they are very unpopular when we print them at too high a volume. I agree.
I thought he had said in the past that white was secondary, even though it has like 2 ever.
I don't think... if you want to give something secondary, I guess you have to put it there because no other color really gets it.
Yeah.
Black has a couple in from the old days, and they're not very good.
Hey,
Dash Hopes.
Dash Hopes ain't bad.
5 Life, and it's cool. And then Withering Boon.
Withering Boon.
Yeah. But white only has about 3, so,
I know. It's not much. We don't need any more than we already have.
There's plenty of counter magic. I suggest you play with the mechanic, as a lot of your preconceptions of the mechanic are inaccurate, and I think you'll be happy to see that it plays way better than your first impression of it. This is a response that this person got from a previous question. We may have went over it last week, may not, I don't know. I don't like this logic. Something can play relatively well while still being poorly designed. Conceptual flaws remain flaws regardless of how well they've been mitigated in practice. And that a format needs an unverifiable constraint logistically is no reason to give a single mechanic the same. That's a lot of big fancy words and a lot of big fancy opinions. And once again, I think our friend Mark nails this one pretty hard. Many years ago, there were some scientists who argued that bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly aerodynamically. I've heard this. This is the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
The response of the bee experts was, don't tell them that. They enjoy flying. If something plays well, I'm skeptical of conceptual flaws that say it can't. As I often remind new game designers, thinking only gets you so far. Nothing can replace actually playing with your game mechanics to see if they work. And this has been proven literally every set. Every 3 months we get a new set, and every set people are going, well, that's just stupid. That don't make no sense. And they play it. This is fun.
Right? I can't even... I'm trying to wrap my head around something can play relatively well while still being poorly designed. This is a game, right?
It's a game.
It's a game. The point of it is to play.
Play the game. And it plays well.
If it plays well, I don't know how that can be poorly designed game mechanic at that point.
Let's go ahead and nail down the stuff that doesn't play well.
Right.
Let's nail down when they screw stuff up and let the other stuff slide because I had a good time with it. You know? I don't know. One of those things, right? Wrapping up April 13th, our ability counters plan to become evergreen. They seem extremely intuitive. They require punch-out counters as memory aids, so it's not something we can do often, but I am optimistic of their return one day. I believe I might have seen somewhere else, and I'm not sure.
Last week, I think we may have said something about I don't even know if he said as much as deciduous, but they would probably pop up again.
He really enjoyed them once they made them and started playing with them.
Right.
I saw something, maybe it's today, so it might be on next week's, or maybe I didn't save it, I don't know. But that it doesn't even have to be evergreen mechanics. If they could do the punch-out cards, which is an extra cost for them to do, if they can do the punch-out cards in a set, then they could do non-evergreens. You could have, like, Infect on a counter, as an example. That was the example given. And I believe that's something I read today. So moving along, unless you have further observations.
I want persist counters. Because once a creature dies and comes back, I won't have a persist counter anymore.
What happens if you clone a mutated creature? Well, I think we might have went over this before, but it copies all aspects.
Everything.
So if you got 5 cards stacked up there, and you make a clone of it, it's all that stuff.
Essentially, the easiest way to try to think of this is that it is one card. Not just that it's one permanent, it is one card.
It's one card with all that text on it.
Right.
That top card with the power, toughness, name, type, and everything, and then just add all the ability boxes underneath it, now on one card. Get you some dry erase tokens, you're going to need them.
Your brain's going to
want to... If you don't already, which you do sometimes, you're going to need them.
Your brain's going to want to think of them as like more auras onto one creature, but it's in rules text because they all go the same place.
It's one creature.
It's one card.
It's one card. One murder takes them all out.
Yep.
Why wasn't the 4-power matters theme in Theros given the ability word ferocious? And I like his explanation because it's something that pops up once in a while on Reblogatog. Because we make so many sets, we will often keyword ability word themes that are playing up in that set.
Right.
If we held on to all that terminology for all future sets, the game would be unwieldy in how large the vocabulary was for new players. And while I, as a deck builder, hate that I can't just search for ferocious and get all the cards that care about ferocious, I don't know. Is Scryfall doing that? I got to look and see if Scryfall's doing that. They need to. You can't search for that. You have to search for power 4 or greater, you know.
Right.
You have to change your search parameter, at least on Gather. I'm old school. I'm trying to switch to Scryfall, but I don't know that even they have that. I get it, though. You can't have all those keywords. It becomes a keyword soup.
Right.
And they learned from Future Sight and Time Spiral Block that putting all those keywords in there makes new players go...
Yeah. And also, I think they really try to keep some of these keywords themed to the play, or keep them with the plane. Like, that was Tarkir, right? Ferocious. Like, if we went back to Tarkir, I'd be more likely to see Ferocious, I think.
Somewhat, but they're starting to mix those more because Design Space... I mean, there's still a lot of it, but it's scrunching, so I like that they mix in older keywords in the new sets and get to use them because you might have had, ferocious with cycling and infect somewhere. We didn't, but, and then in the future it gets reshuffled and we get infect with, strive and something else, I
want to see Ascend back is what I want to see. I like the Ascend. Just make a big board state and you get an extra thing.
All right. I was not aware that you're not allowed to see card designs. That's why I did this one. though that makes sense from an IP perspective. Is that true of everyone in design? Are you able to hear proposed mechanics as well, or is that similarly verboten? No one in R&D can see unsolicited designs, which includes cards, mechanics, and sets. So, if you got a cool design, you just have to make it, show it to your friends or whatever.
Right.
Don't submit it to Mark Rosewater. They're not going to put it in the next Magic set.
No.
There'd be all kinds of issues. So, he'll post once in a while that he's not allowed to look at those, and if he starts reading something, he bails out of it. And he gets asked, quite frankly, have you ever used a card that you saw in a design? And he's like, I try not to look at those, you know. So you're allowed to make suggestions of things you'd like to see, things you'd like to see done in general. Just don't get on there and go, hey, make mechanic A that does this thing.
Right.
Don't go there. You can even suggest we want to see, you know, Western World or whatever.
Right.
You know?
Oh, because everybody does want to see Western World.
Yeah, and I think I might have missed that. We'll see.
Yeah, there's not a Western World. There's one about...
Yeah, but I think I might have missed the other one. So anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Moving on to April 15th.
Ooh!
How come in Ikoria there were barely any massive power toughness creatures? Par with the Eldrazi's, basically. Since it's called Lair of Behemoths. 4 reasons.
Fair question, though.
Fair question, but I think we know the answer since we know what's going on here. Number 1, it's hard to support creatures that large expensive. Yeah, if all the creatures are big, you got no early game, and they learned lessons, as we talked about last week, from Rise of Eldrazi. 2, they create play design issues with things like reanimation and other ways to circumvent cost. Yeah. Yeah, we've seen that from the old formats when they didn't have that reanimation quite down. Why do you think reanimate, animate dead, those kinds of things are not done anymore? Reanimation spells cost 5 now.
Yeah.
5. Not 2, not 1. 5.
One's so much better.
Number 3, they tend not to play all that well. They're mostly just win the game. I played Emrakul. Look, I'm going to win. Well, if you can get there and I don't have 15 squirrels to take him out, maybe.
Right.
Number 4, a major theme of Ikoria was building monsters. So the biggest ones are built over time. And that's the mutate mechanic.
Right.
And the keyword counters even. Being able to build the monster, you know, that's going to be really cool the first time you're able to put a certain sequence, maybe you built a deck to do, and you get the 2 or 3, let's be realistic, 2 or 3 mutate cards on a creature that you wanted to, and you get maybe a keyword ability counter on him, and then it's like, yes, this is my monster, you know. That's going to be really cool to do, especially in Limited when you draft. And and you get a really cool card, a couple of cool mutates, and you draw them, you actually get to do them. That's going to be an awesome feeling to do. So that's why they didn't do that. Can we see companions in an unset? Seems like it could play with restrictions that are only possible in silver border.
It does seem cool.
And again, I said last week I don't do a lot of silver bordered unstuff, but this seems cool. When working on Ikoria, I made a few companions that were silver bordered. If we found the right place to put them, there are designs. So again, he's thinking ahead, and I think another year or 2, we'll get more unstuff.
Yeah.
I think that's going to pop up. I don't know that we're going to get it every 2 years, but maybe every 3.
Yeah.
And we're already, 2 years past the last one, or pretty close?
Well, you know, we had something just like last month. But
that wasn't a full-blown thing, so...
I agree. I think it won't be too long. But yeah, some silver border companions, I was thinking of there could be some fun restrictions there.
What is Wizard's strategy to combat power creep, if any? There are a lot of things we do, and a lot of them we don't even understand unless we're into card design. Note that last year we pulled up the power level of the standard legal sets as they had dropped over the last decade. Now, playing for the last decade, because I opened my store a decade ago, I didn't notice any power level dropping. I'm going to be real straight up honest. Didn't notice it happening. They always are ramping certain things up and then ramping other things down.
Right.
Deaccelerating, if you will. That's a thing that we notice, is there a lightning strike in the format, or is it just shock? Is there a 3-mana common kill spell in black, or is it 4? Do we get what is it, the -4/-4 for 5 mana in black, or the -4/-4 for 4 mana. You know, a lot of things like this change the power level a little bit, and we just don't notice it.
Right. It's the very small stuff that kind of regulates everything else.
This one was really tickled me. At what point did you know that Ikoria wasn't going to be a great set? You mentioned a few hiccups in development, so at some point you have to have an inkling that it wouldn't be up to normal standards. Bless him. Bless him on his responses, because most of us would just unload. When did I know that Ikoria wasn't going to just be a great set, but something even better? That's an interesting question. I knew in Vision Design that we were playing with something out of the ordinary, but it wasn't until I saw what Dave and his set design team were doing that I really started to realize we had something awesome. What cemented it was watching all the excitement from the fans who really have embraced the monster set in a spectacular way.
With grace, Mark. With grace.
He continues to astound me with his patience and his ability to communicate succinctly and properly at all times with all types of people.
Yeah.
Is Colossification worthy to be a rare card? I'm sorry to be impolite, but it just does something boring. Your boring is someone else's exciting. You can't see why others might not be excited by +20/+20?
Yeah.
We talked about last week.
That's rare, guys.
2 green and 5, tap a creature, +20/+20. We talked about the tap creature part.
Right.
But +20/+20? You can't see how maybe that would be awesome. I got like some little Pegasus out there. All of a sudden it's like, you don't got any flyers. I'm swinging for lethal. Shockers. I see why it's exciting.
+20/+20, just put those numbers alone on something. You put a rare color code on there.
I personally am going to do my best to use Colossification and Ram Through to hurt people.
Why, thank you. That's so good to know.
That's my personal dream. I want to do it in Limited. I want to do it in Standard. I want to do it in Commander. I want to do it in every format that I can possibly do it. If I could do it in Pauper, I would, but I can't because Classifications are rare. Maybe that's what he wanted. All right. Any thoughts on reusing the Interrupt card type? It could be used to splice effects onto permanents. And he says we don't have any current plans to do so. This is in response to an earlier question or comment that someone made about how usually when they talk about new card types, they're permanent card types.
Yeah.
And so someone had asked, do you think you'd ever make a non-permanent new card type? And he said if they found a reason to do so that the player base would accept and be able to understand. We got instances of sorceries. I'm not sure where else we go with a non-permanent card type. And that's what this question was dealing with.
Yeah, interrupts just don't really, with the way the stack works in Modern Magic, there's no place for an interrupt anymore.
Yeah, that we got split second if they want to bring that back.
Right. That's essentially an interrupt, a split second.
Sorta,
but...
Okay, does Ikoria's outrageous profusion of counters make putting +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters in the same set more likely, assuming you found a compelling reason for it? This surprised me because he's always said no.
I think it'd be really cool to have them working with each other.
If the set had punch-out counters and made a lot of mechanical sense, sure, we'd consider it. Because it used to be, no, we're not putting +1/+1s and -1/-1s in the same set. Too confusing.
I think it'd be
for
cool.
board state. Yeah.
I think if they're going to give us all the keyword counters and everything, give us +1/+1 or -1/-1. We can do basic math. Magic players can, usually.
Yeah, it's just that if all you have is white six-sided dice, which ones are the +1/+1s, which ones are the -1/-1s. But again, with the punch-out counters, buy 2 different colors of dice. You know, there's ways to do it. Will Magic ever get an ocean world? A world that is predominantly, if not completely, water-covered ocean thing. It's on his short list.
One might say a water world.
Ha ha ha. I believe one that I must have cut was someone asked about Westworld, and it also is on the short list.
Yes.
We're going to wrap it up today, guys, with our last one. Do you suppose at some point in Magic there will be so many dragons printed in all 5 colors that most players won't recognize them as Red's iconic creature type? Because if not, I'm curious why dragons maintain Red's iconic type when the number of dragon cards that don't include red mana in their casting cost is equivalent to the number of printed Sphinx cards, 55. He did some work. I feel like dragons have too much design space to stay Red's iconic, and I don't think it would phase players to change it. Well, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
We like dragon as Red's iconic, and as you've shown, we allow it to occasionally play in other colors for those that want to see that. Notice he doesn't particularly address, but he doesn't need to. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think anybody is upset that Red's iconic is a dragon.
No.
And I do think people would be upset if it wasn't, because we get a dragon in almost every set. At least one, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
Or 10.
Yeah. I like when they do that. It's been a while since we had a big dragon cycle.
Yeah, well, not that far. Anyway, that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate all of you. And come back next week and catch some more Reblogatog.